Well, good morning, good morning. Hello from Massachusetts and welcome. I'm going to take a quick look at my laptop to make sure that we're good to go. I had a moment of panic because I didn't see the green light that I was good to go, but I think I am. So let me take a quick look and make sure the video and audio are okay. It looks like we're good to go. I know a couple of members have already joined the chat, so if you can hear me well and see me well, you can give me a thumbs up. So let me know that things are good for you too. Welcome, welcome. It's a little after 9 o'clock here in Massachusetts. I know people are joining from different parts of the world, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join me. We have at least 30 minutes together. I usually go as much as an hour because I love studying with you all so much. And remember, if you want to join the chat, you just click join and become a member. It's only $1 a month. You get lots of good perks for that dollar. One of them is joining the live chat at the monthly live stream. After this live stream, I'm also going to create some follow-up tasks for my members, and those tasks will be on the community tab. Okay, thanks for confirming, Stunning Lad 1. I appreciate the thumbs up, and we're good to go. I hope that Friday is starting out well for you. I have a number of things planned. Another thing I do for my members is I invite questions and requests in advance, and that guides my choices of what we're going to cover during the live stream. Of course, you can always post a language question in the comments on any of my videos. I do take time out of my day to respond to comments, and I'm pretty good at responding on a daily basis, so feel free to do that. But you can get a little bit more as a member, okay? Jacques is here. Paula, Stunning Lad, thank you for being in the chat with me from France. Oh, I have a little secret. I don't know, I'll drop some hints. I think I might be close to Jacques in the near future. So I'm actually starting to prepare for a little or slash big trip that I didn't realize I would be taking, but I am now. So I actually found myself an online tutor to help me recall some of my high school French. I did take French many, many years ago. We're talking decades. But I don't remember much. So I actually found myself a tutor to help me remember the basics, because I think I will need some of those basics on an upcoming trip. Hint, hint. Okay. All right. If you want to join the chat again, click join. I'm going to jump right into announcements and we will get started with our live stream. Okay. Let me work my magic and hope that I can share my screen with you. I'll take a look at my laptop to also make sure that you can see what I see. Are you guys planning any trips, any travel this summer or for the rest of the year? Have you been anywhere this year? I'd be curious to know. Let me know in the chat. Where have you traveled? Where would you like to travel? And if you can't travel in 2023, perhaps you have some wishes for the future. What are some of your dream destinations? I'd be curious to know. Okay, looks good on my laptop. I think you can see my screen. I hope the text is big enough. I apologize if you're on a little phone with a little screen. I can go a little bit bigger for you, possibly. There we go. How about that? Okay. If you're enjoying the live stream experience, but you want a little bit more, actually a lot more, if you want cameras on, mics on, and you want to talk with me and talk with others, well, I invite advanced learners to join me on Patreon. Patreon is one of the buttons on my YouTube channel. Click it and learn what I can offer. You need to be around B2 or higher. But if you understand my live streams, this is about how I talk, in terms of how fast and how complex, but the tasks can be challenging on Patreon. We have 2 live classes each month. They're group classes with mics on, videos on, and I share tasks between lessons for further practice. I try to challenge my learners to develop all skills. If that sounds interesting to you, then hop on over to Patreon. The link is on my homepage on YouTube. Just click and read the different perks. You get two bi-monthly, the two means bi-monthly lessons, 75-minute Zoom classes. I give you tasks, exclusive materials. As soon as you join, you will have access to many previous recordings. You get the community interaction. You even get private messaging with me. We focus on all skills. So again, if that sounds interesting, click the link to learn more. Okay, by the way, July, my members voted for debates. So we're going to be debating different topics, mainly through speaking, but of course there'll be the opportunity through writing as well. So visit Patreon for details. Our first group class is next week, July 14th, and we'll have one more at the end of the month. Okay, super guys. All right, jumping straight into the first exercise / task, I have a poem to share with you. If you've been with me at previous live streams, you know that I do enjoy poetry, and one of my favorite poets is Robert Frost. He's an American poet. I've shared some of his poems before. If you've heard of Robert Frost, if you've read some of his poems, you can give me a thumbs up or even name the poem that you know. Okay. Do you like poetry? Well, hopefully I can convince you, if you don't, how beautiful poetry can be and how it can be a part of language studies. This poem is called Fire and Ice. It's not too long, but it's packed with meaning, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to first read it, then we'll look at vocabulary, and then we'll take it apart a little bit and try to dig for some meaning together. Then we'll do a final reading. Anytime you do any kind of reading, you want to do it more than once, guys. You can get so much more out of the experience if you approach a text different ways. So the first way I'm asking you to read this text is to listen and read along silently, okay? Try to grasp the overall meaning. Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to know that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. What do you think? Well, it might be hard to start digging unless you grasp the vocabulary. So I've included some notes that I share in a PDF that I now have on Shopify. More on that in a bit. So the 4 words, actually 1, 2, 3, hold, perish, and suffice. Those are the ones we're going to highlight here. I know you know the word hold, but I want to call attention to how the poet used this phrase. In the poem, hold with those means the speaker holds the same view as the people who favor fire, right? I hold with those who favor fire. I hold the same view, the same opinion as those who favor fire, who give preference to that option, that alternative. Perish is a formal verb for die, right? You'll hear that in the news and journalism. If there's a tragic event and they're reporting the event, they could say how many people were killed, but also how many perished. So it could be in a news report, a news article. It could also be in historic text if they're talking about some sort of event or war or battle, how many people perished, how many people died. Suffice is a good word to know as well. If something suffices, it's enough. Right? If this is the verb, some of you may know the adjective, which is probably more common. Does anyone know that word family? Suffice is the verb. What is the adjective? Do you know? You can type it in the chat if my members know. I'll tell you in a moment if you don't. It's good to know word endings and word parts so that if it is an unfamiliar word, you can recognize it and understand if it's a noun, an adjective, a verb, or an adverb. Word parts help us do that. Suffice. Oh, there we go. Stunning Lad and Paula. Yes, sufficient. Suffice, sufficient. Suffice, sufficient. That's sufficient. Of course, in everyday conversation, very casually, you'd say, that's enough. But if you talk about resources, are the resources sufficient for our needs? It sounds, it's elevated, it's nicer. Right? This is more advanced vocabulary. Okay, so I know that for destruction, ice is also great, meaning strong, and it would suffice. It would be enough if we're talking about the end of the world. Okay, let me read it once more with those 3 key words defined, and I want you now to think about the meaning, and I want you to think about the 2 alternatives. We're talking about how this world could end for humans in particular. End in fire, end in ice. What is the poet referring to? What could bring about our end? What could bring about destruction to the world and the life we know? What does fire represent? What does ice represent? Listen again. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to know that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Poems, like song lyrics, they're open to interpretation. There's what it meant to the poet and the speaker of the poem, but we can always, dig and see what it means to us. So thinking about fire and ice, what do you think these things represent? Perhaps you can think of emotions. If we separate emotions, human behavior, into 2 categories, what does fire represent? What does ice represent? Think about that. Oh, Paula's already digging. Inferno and heaven, perhaps. Yeah. Again, there's personal interpretations that we can bring to poems. We could bring in religion, heaven and hell, inferno and heaven, possibly. But what about emotions? What kind of emotion would you associate with a fire? Think about that. And what kind of emotion would you associate with ice? Passion. Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines, Paula. Passion. Now, passion is not necessarily a bad thing, is it? Right? So now we get into the idea, when is something too much? Perhaps too much of anything could be bad, right? Passion for your work, passion for a cause, that could be good. When does it become too much? When does passion lead to some form of harm or even destruction? Something to think about. And I will invite my members to comment on that in the community tab. But please, after the live stream, there'll be comments if you also want to think and reflect a bit more on the poem and then add your interpretation later in the public comments. You're welcome to. Poetry is also something that gets us to think. And of course, thinking in the target language is a good thing. It's what we want to do. People often complain, why am I always translating, right? How do we get away from translating? You seek out opportunities to think more in the target language. And I think things like poetry and song lyrics, they make us feel. And the feeling just happens. You don't translate feelings necessarily or not immediately. So I think in that sense, poetry can help us think more in a target language because it pulls out, it evokes certain feelings, and we can work with that, as we interpret. Okay, more ideas. Stunning Lad 1. Ice can represent cool and calm. Again, good things. But playing it cool, almost indifferent. Like cool is positive, right? Keep cool, keep calm. Those are positive emotions, positive behaviors. But indifference, and someone can type that for me, indifference could be negative, right? When you're like, you just don't care at all. Stunning Lad 1 suggests that fire can represent anger and fury, right? And sometimes anger could be a good thing if it prompts you to act and create change that is ultimately positive. But again, perhaps too much of anything could be negative. Something to think about. So both fire and ice could bring about our destruction. Both fire and ice could lead to harm, right? Indifference. Thank you. Well, thank you. Rex, I appreciate that so much. I know who you are. Thank you so much. Aya, wonderful. Thank you, guys. Okay. All right. Last time we'll read, I want you to read with me. You're starting to feel what the theme is about, right? Understanding that the poet is thinking about what can lead to harm, what inside of us as humans can bring about our own end if we're not careful. There are good things inside of us, but too much of anything, if anything becomes too intense, it goes too far, it could be harmful. What are those things that we need to be aware of, right? And we look at the news and we understand, there are a lot of negative things reported. What are those negative things and where did they come from? From fire, from ice. So you can always relate poems, even if they were written decades ago or a century ago. There's usually a way to connect it to the present and find relevance. That's another beauty of poetry, okay? All right, guys. So how about this? The last reading I'll do with you, I'll read and I'll pause after each line. Another way you can work with poetry is for pronunciation. So you can use it to develop your rhythm and your linking. Poetry, song lyrics, they help us promote smooth speech, connected speech. Okay? I'll take a sip of water. You can do the same. And we'll do a final reading of Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. All right? Follow my rhythm and try to connect words. We don't want words to be isolated like some say the world, but some say the world. Okay? Follow my rhythm, follow my linking. Okay. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to know that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. I hope you enjoyed the poem. Again, I encourage you to embrace poetry and all the opportunities it offers you. One, to think more in the target language, to dig a little and get some meaning. We want our language studies to be meaningful, purposeful, right? And also enjoyable, but you can use it for pronunciation, for listening. As you see, we can get vocabulary out of it, and you will develop vocabulary if you have some guidance, like vocabulary notes. So this is a moment where I'd like to tell you where you can get these kinds of readings and these kinds of notes. So I've been busy with some help building a store on Shopify. For some of you, I hope that the products appear on my YouTube channel. I don't know about the limited visibility. This is a new area for me to explore, but I wanted to share some tools with you, and I thought this would be a good way to do so. So let me just show over here, for example. If you guys also follow me on Instagram, by the way, I have a smart bio, and if you open up the smart bio, you'll see all my links, and the first one is buy my digital downloads. But you can also come to my YouTube channel, and you should see something called the store right now. Hopefully you do. If you don't, I'd be curious to know what country you're in. Let me know. But these are some of the products I've already put up. I have a few more that I'll be sharing in the near future. Once you click on my store, this is what it looks like. So these are the products that I have in place right now. A learner's pledge, a teacher's pledge. These are pledges that I have on my website. But here I'm offering my recording and a very nice PDF copy that you can keep on your phone, or you could print out if you want. And the two big tools that I'm offering right now, one is on vowel sounds in American English. Vowel sounds are so critical for clear communication. This is where misunderstandings can occur. This is where comprehension can be challenging if you don't have accurate vowel sounds. So that's a collection of drills and a practice text at the end to integrate all the sounds. I take you through all 15 vowel sounds plus more, plus and all the other vowel sounds. So you can use the PDF and MP3 to guide you. I'm trying really hard to keep prices affordable because I want you to have these tools in your hand. You click, you buy, you get a download link via email. This is the one that ties into what we just did. I selected 15 poems, including 2 of my own that I've shared on Instagram. There are 15 poetry readings like Robert Frost's Fire and Ice. And I even give you 2 different kinds of record. Actually, yeah, 2 different ones. One with music and one without. So if you want just a listening experience, you could just play the poems and listen to me read. There's some pleasant music in the background, and you can have an enjoyable listening experience, which will expose you to the rhythm and the linking in English, that it helps expose you to a model that could guide you to using those aspects in your production. But in the PDF, I also have vocabulary notes and questions to prompt you to think more about that poem and reflect. Okay? Yes, there will be more. We're just starting. So please visit. This is brand new. I'm learning how to build my store, so I encourage you to visit. Okay? All right, please do. And now let's move on. Members have sent in questions. If you do have new questions, put them in the chat. I will do my best to answer them. And I want to tackle the first one. Somebody asked me, among my members, what's the difference between defining and non-defining relative clauses? Well, first you have to understand the terminology. Defining and non-defining. Some people call relative clauses adjective clauses. Okay, so that might help if you're like, what's a relative clause? Adjective clause. They're clauses made with that, which, and who. But relative clauses opens the door to clauses also made with when, where, and why. We talk about defining and non-defining as 2 types of these clauses. Some sources use other terms. You might be familiar with identifying and non-identifying, or restrictive and non-restrictive. If all of this sounds like mumbo jumbo or like blah, 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 I don't like grammar terminology, all you need to ask yourself is, when you use these clauses with who, which, that, whose, is the information in the clause necessary, or is it additional, meaning you could leave it out? If it's necessary, don't use commas. Necessary means it's defining, identifying, restrictive, whatever term you like. Additional information that could be left out requires commas. We're sort of setting it off. It's like, by the way, let me add this, but I don't really need to, but I'm going to. Commas set off the additional information. So if it's additional, it's non-defining, non-identifying, non-restrictive. Okay, depending on what source you're looking at, what explanation or presentation you're watching. Okay, I hope that's clear, but we will make it clearer through practice. Again, adjective clauses are like adjectives. They describe, they give information, like a nice boy, a smart girl, right? So we use adjectives to describe people or things. Adjective clauses are bigger pieces of information that describe a person or a thing. The difference is adjectives in English go before the noun, like a good book, a useful product, right? We put the adjective before the noun. But when we have adjective clauses, they go after the head noun. They follow. That's important. So here I have 5 sentences based on my recent trip to the movie theater. Has anyone else seen the new Indiana Jones movie? Can't say it's the greatest film ever, but generally thumbs up. If you're a fan of the series, you might as well go and watch the latest one. So I do like Harrison Ford. I do like the character of Indiana Jones, and I was curious enough to go and watch the final chapter, so to speak. So I wrote some sentences based on this film, and what we need to do together is decide if they're identifying or not. Okay, and we're going to pinpoint where the clauses are, right? I said they follow the noun. So let's look at sentence number 1. I'm going to go a little bigger for those of you who are on cell phones. I hope you can see that. I watched the new Indiana Jones movie. Oops, I'm catching my own typo, which I liked overall. Relative or adjective clauses, they start with who, which, that. Okay, so here it is. That's the clause, and I'm describing movie, which I liked overall. Now you need to ask yourself, is this clause necessary, or can we leave it out? So you experiment. You can cover it, cross it out. If you're on a computer, just delete it and read the sentence and see if it makes sense. I watched the new Indiana Jones movie. Yes, it makes sense, doesn't it? Do I have to tell you whether I liked it or not? It's interesting. You might be curious, but you don't need that information to understand the main clause. So I need a comma. Okay, so we're going to put this highlighted like that. How's that? Can you see? There we go. Okay. You've never seen any of those films? Oh, I grew up in the 80s, and when Indiana Jones came out, boy, it was a big deal. Those were the days where you could not buy tickets in advance, and you had to line up out of the theater, and everybody wanted to see Indiana Jones. So yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark was big, and then when the other movies came out, again, the lines were out the theater. We all wanted to see the next adventure of Indiana Jones. If you like action films, they're good family films in a sense. The second one, not so crazy about, but still, overall, it's a nice character. It's a fun action series. Okay? All right, I see people jumping in. Yep. Paula, it's unnecessary. So Stunning Lad, correct. It's not required. Look at number 2. So if you know Indiana Jones, it's kind of like James Bond. There's always a love interest, but his main love interest, the love of his life, is Marion. If you ever want to really appreciate the whole package of this film, here on YouTube, check out the soundtrack, because John Williams is one of the best, if not the best, music. He's an awesome composer. He's a genius for soundtracks, right? So listen to the music for Indiana Jones. It's beautiful, and Marion's theme is lovely. So yes, I encourage you to listen to Marion's theme. It's beautiful, kind of like Leia's theme from Star Wars. Number 2, Marion, Indy's wife, makes an appearance. Okay. Now this is a little bit tricky. I could actually say who is Indy's wife. That's the full clause. So I made this a little bit more challenging because I took away some parts of the clause. The full clause is Marion, who is Indy's wife, makes an appearance. We can reduce some adjective clauses. This is one we can, because we have the verb to be. We can take out the pronoun who and is, and we're left with a noun or noun phrase, Indy's wife. So let me just put that back in here. Whoopsies, like this. Who is. So you can see the full clause. The question is, could I say Marion makes an appearance? A name of a person is enough to identify somebody. We don't usually need additional information, right? When we have a person's name, names identify people. And especially if you know the series, you know about Indiana and Marion. So Marion, who is Indy's wife, by the way, or let me remind you, or let me explain. So the commas again are for unnecessary information. It's additional stuff, just saying, by the way. Right? Marion, who is Indy's wife, or Marion, Indy's wife, makes an appearance in this last film. Okay? Don't worry, we're going to be scrolling down. Those of you who are going very fast. Number 3. Harrison Ford is definitely too old for the kinds of stunts that he did in his earlier films. 1980s was a long time ago, so 40 years ago he was obviously younger and more able to do dangerous stunts. Less so now. He's too old for the kinds of stunts that he did in his earlier films. Where is the adjective clause? Look for the relative pronoun that, which, who, whose. Here it is. Okay. You ask yourself, can I take it out? Harrison Ford is definitely too old for the kinds of stunts. And you're left thinking, what kind of stunts? We need this information. So whereas in 1 and 2, we could leave out the adjective clauses. They're non-identifying. Number 3 requires us to leave it in. We need this information to identify what kinds of stunts he did, the kinds of stunts that he did in earlier films. Okay, we need this information, and I see that you guys are on the ball with number 3. No commas. Super job. Okay. Number 4. I think his name is Rhys Davies. John Rhys Davies, who plays Sala, is also part of the latest cast. Another character returns. John Rhys Davies, who plays Sala, is also part of the latest cast. Okay. What did I say about names, proper names? Names of people like John, Mary, Sue, and names of companies like Apple, Google, YouTube. They identify the person or thing. We don't need any more information. So it's enough to say that this actor, John Rhys Davies, is also part of the cast. Now, by the way, let me tell you which character he played. Who plays Sala? Adjective clauses can go at the end, like this. They can also come in the middle of a sentence because we need to put it after the head noun. In this case, John Rhys Davies. What about him? Who plays Sala? Okay, so there's my relative pronoun, and here is the rest of the clause. Remember, clauses have subjects and verbs. Sometimes the relative pronoun is the subject of the sentence. Who plays Sala? This is additional. We could leave it out because we have the name. We don't really need. Okay. Is it Rhys? Thank you for correcting me. I didn't know. I went on Youglish, by the way, and I heard other people say Rhys. I was ready to say Rhys, but on Youglish, which is a place I go to check pronunciation, I heard Rhys. That's why I said Rhys. Okay. All right, and number 5. The original remains my favorite, but my second favorite is the third film, which also stars Sean Connery and River Phoenix. Right? So there's 5 films now, quite a lot. But the original trilogy all came out like the 80s around there. So the original remains my favorite, but my second favorite is the third film, which also stars Sean Connery and River Phoenix. Look for the relative pronoun, that, which, who. Do you see it? There's which. There it is. Question is, could we take it out? The original remains my favorite, but my second favorite is the third film. That's enough, isn't it? When I say the first one, the second one, the third one, that is enough to identify which film I'm talking about. If there's sufficient information, then I don't need to add anything else. Anything else I add is extra. So, let's see. Do I need to say that there are additional actors? Do I need to list the whole cast? I don't. Okay. No comma. You don't have to fancy the films, you just have to read the sentences about them. Any film is sufficient for us to create some sentences, but all kinds of genres. I like different ones. Anything from drama to even war films I'll watch. I like dramas, comedies if I'm in the mood, and action films, simply because they're good family films. So things that I've been able to watch with my children over the years are films that I like. So this is one of them. I also like Star Wars, where my whole family is into Star Wars. So even my brothers, even more so than I am, we're big Star Wars fans. So we grew up with that. That sort of reflects our childhood, late 70s into the 80s. So Indiana Jones was a character that we grew up with. Okay. Now, final thing I'm going to do is I will read these 5 sentences, and I want you to pay attention to how I'm reading them. When you're writing, you need to know about commas. Commas are for additional extra information we could leave out because these are non-identifying clauses. Okay? If it is extra information, my voice reflects that. If I'm speaking and I use adjective or relative clauses, my voice reflects the use of commas. Without commas, I read a sentence straight through without pauses. Commas generally reflect a pause. You'll hear me break, and sometimes my voice drops down in pitch because it's like, this is really important and this really isn't. Okay? So listen to how I'm reading and pay attention to how my voice might change when I come to a comma. This is the one. This is our only one, by the way, with identifying information. So you'll hear me read it at straight through, smoother. Let me take another sip of water to get ready. And something you can do after the live stream is also practice reading these 5 sentences and reflect the fact that some are identifying and some are non-identifying. It should be heard in your voice how you read these sentences. 1. I watched the new Indiana Jones movie, which I liked overall. There's a break there, right? 2. Marion, who is Indy's wife, makes an appearance. 3. Harrison Ford is definitely too old for the kinds of stunts that he did in his earlier films. 4. John Rhys Davies, who plays Sulla, is also part of the latest cast. 5. The original remains my favorite, but my second favorite is the third film, which also stars Sean Connery and River Phoenix. Oh, Stunning Lad 1, you're thinking of Sean Connery's other famous role, right? James Bond. Some people have preference for Roger Moore. Some people prefer Sean Connery in that iconic role. Okay. Oh, look at that. Somebody gifted a membership. That's nice. Thank you for gifting membership. What a beautiful gift, to give the gift of study, language study. So thank you and welcome to new members, whether you clicked on the button or someone clicked it for you. Okay. All right. So again, that was about defining, non-defining, identifying, non-identifying, restrictive or non-restrictive commas or clauses. And again, if all the terminology is a bit too much to remember and too much of a mouthful to say, just keep in mind whether the information is necessary or not. Okay? Members, if you want to write a couple sentences, that might be one of your follow-up tasks, is to choose another movie perhaps and give me 2 examples, one identifying, one non-identifying. Okay, that could be a good follow-up task. All right, second question that came in is, how do we use parentheses, right? Parentheses are these guys. punctuation marks. Some of you may write more than others, but y'all text, right? And you all put comments in there. You need to know how to use punctuation marks because punctuation marks help package our thoughts when they take a written form. Punctuation makes everything clear to our readers. Punctuation is great, but you could also misuse and overuse. Like someone can stick in commas all over the place, or apostrophes, or parentheses. So you have to know, when do we use parentheses? So I made a short list. We'll go through the examples, and then I have a text to demonstrate the danger of overusing a punctuation mark like parentheses. Okay? Good job there on the other first task. Thank you for all your participation, guys. All right, so parentheses, sparingly, that's my answer. How do you use them? Sparingly, meaning not a lot. Be careful how you use them. Sparingly means a little bit here and a little bit there. Carefully, not too much. Don't overuse them. Okay, you're going to use parentheses sometimes for secondary information. Some people put parentheses around adjective clauses like this, right? Yeah, you could, but commas usually serve that purpose. Okay, here's my example. Let me go up. Acknowledgement, also spelled acknowledgement without an E, see, with or without, is a noun, and it means that you recognize or know something. So this is an example where it's extra information and it's secondary. It's not that important, but it's helpful. So if there's an alternative spelling, you could do that. Similarly, if there's a translation that you want to give, like bon appetit. So not everybody might recognize that. So you may say, by the way, let me tell you what it means in French. Literally, good appetite in French is a way to wish someone a pleasant meal. Right? Different languages, different cultures have ways of wishing people, have a nice lunch, have a good meal, bon appetit. Okay? Again, how would I read it? You're going to hear me pause. It's a parenthetical remark. It's secondary information. So my voice sets it off very much like I read the non-identifying adjective clauses earlier. Listen. Acknowledgement, also spelled acknowledgement without an E, is a noun, and it means that you recognize or know something. Bon appetit, literally good appetite in French, is a way to wish someone a pleasant meal. Rex is like the gift that keeps on giving. Oh, that sounds like a commercial. Hey, I see Ma Hippo here. Glad to have you here. I know you're tuning in from Japan. Welcome, welcome. You might also use parentheses for comments, personal comments. Got to be careful with these. Again, you can do this in informal writing, but don't overuse it. Skydiving has become a commercial activity that many, though not me, have tried in tandem with a trained instructor. So also picture parentheses like a little whisper. So my main sentence is about skydiving and how, lots of people do it. And then I might whisper like, but not me, right? So parentheses do that kind of job, like a little aside, a little side comment that doesn't really belong in the main statement can be placed within parentheses. Listen again. Skydiving has become a commercial activity that many, though not me, have tried in tandem with a trained instructor. And lastly, you could use parentheses for instructions. This is common in email. See attached file, see below, see link, whatever. Click here, you might put in parentheses. I have videos on punctuation. See below. Okay. Now, you don't necessarily have to, but sometimes instructions are like that, or page numbers. See page 2. I've handed out the homework. See page 2 for further instructions. So again, these are 4 common reasons why you might use parentheses: for secondary information, for translations, for comments, and for instructions. Okay, I do have a whole playlist, on punctuation. You can check out the writing skills playlist. So just go to my YouTube channel or my website, look for the writing skills playlist, and most of the lessons are on punctuation. Lesson 13 is where I talk about parentheses. Okay, Hopefully that makes sense. If you want to put some examples there, members, in the chat, you can. Go ahead. Think about it. Maybe you want to think of a word in your language, and you might give me an example similar to this one, right? Translate something for me from your language into this one, okay? Some of you are, one of you at least is in the UK. You could give me Cockney English that I wouldn't recognize, something like that. We have people from Japan, from Spain, from other countries. If your first language is Spanish, you can give me a word. My instinct tells me to put that foreign word in italics, sort of to say that's not an English word per se, although bon appetit is something that Americans might say. You could put the foreign word in italics, and then in parentheses, give me the translation and explain when people use it. Okay? So feel free to put an example there. Okay, so we're going to read a text now. It's the last exercise we do. We're going to be ending hopefully on the hour. We're going to prepare to read a text with parentheses, too many parentheses. To do that, we need to cover these words. Okay, let me scroll just a little bit right there. Okay, let me read this word list for you. Some of them may be familiar to you. Some of them you may know, but you do not actively use. When you see the paragraph, you'll see these words in use, and perhaps it will prompt you to start using the words more actively yourself. Okay? These are all good words to know. Inevitable, strive, embrace, imperfections, flaw, flawless, shortcoming, foster, stumble, empathy versus sympathy. Oh, Chile. That's a place I'd love to visit one day, Paula. But I thought I was going to take some basic Spanish lessons this summer, but then plans changed and I realized, oh no, I need some French lessons like right now. So I still have a goal though of getting some basic Spanish under my belt, so to speak. Okay. Yes, Dunninglad 2-1. What would the 21 represent though? Or you can give it like, oh, you could also put like a link into your channel or channel name, something like that. Okay. All right. Quick little test here. Remember earlier I said poetry, for example, introduces you to vocabulary. One of the vocabulary skills you want to build is recognizing and understanding word parts so that when you see an unfamiliar word, at least you can guess what function does it have? What's the part of speech? If you know suffixes, or prefixes, that will guide you. Suffixes help with word parts. So for example, inevitable. Inevitable. You see that ending and you think, do I know other words like that? Doable. Forgettable. Yes, I know words like that. Those words are adjectives. So think about that. How about here? Imperfections. Imperfections. What other word? Direction. Direction. Infection, right? That's a noun ending. Look for things that you know. These words are related, but how are they different? This one has an ending. Do I know other words with less? Painless, mindless, adjectives without something. Okay, so that's another thing you can do. Yes, very good. All right. Strive, verb, embrace. Some words can be nouns or verbs. You can embrace someone, or you can feel and enjoy someone's embrace, right? Inevitable, you see the prefix in. IN is like not. Think of impossible or inactive. Inept. In and in and im are about the negative, saying it's the opposite of that. Inevitable, you can't stop it. It's going to happen. If something is inevitable, it's going to happen. It's almost like unstoppable in the sense that it's going to happen. The events will unfold. Strive, I think, is a familiar word to some of you. If you don't know it, it's a great word to learn because we're all working towards goals. We're striving towards things. We're striving, we're working and making the effort to achieve things. So striving is reaching towards something like a goal. Okay. Embrace is like holding. Hold with our arms, right? So a couple can be embracing, right? Or as you say goodbye, you embrace your friend. You give them a hug. So embracing is putting your arms around something. It could be literal, right? If I embrace my friend and kiss her cheek and say goodbye, that's literal. But embracing an opportunity, embracing life, you're not just accepting it, you're putting all your intention around it. So hold with your arms could also mean accept, right? Accept fully. So look, I'm using parentheses because this is an alternative meaning. Okay, and I'm also putting the parts of speech in parentheses because that's secondary information. I said that I am means not. This told me it's a noun. This means not perfect, right? Imperfection is one thing. Imperfections, we're making it plural. Look how much information we got from word parts. This means not, this means noun, and this tells us it's plural. Imperfections are little things that are not perfect in us, right? These words are similar. Imperfections are flaws. You could also say flaws. Let's do it like this so that you know it's countable. Imperfection, many imperfections. Imperfections, like flaws, weaknesses, mistakes or errors, depends how you see it. Imperfections in people, imperfections in a program or in a computer program, perhaps. One can embrace an idea. Very nice. Struggle. What did you mean, Paula? Struggle in what sense? Was that with strive? Yeah, I mean, there is a sense, like when you're striving, you're working towards something. It's not necessarily easy, like you go and get it. You're working towards it. It can be a struggle, right? Strive to be my best. Strive to do my best. I put in the effort to do my best. Striving is making the effort to achieve something. Okay. Some people also talk about not just embracing opportunity, but embracing a struggle. If you understand and you think positively, that struggles make us stronger. Challenges and difficulties test us. So you might embrace those struggles. You might embrace those challenges, knowing that when you get through it, you'll be stronger, right? Okay. Flaws. We can just go back and forth. Imperfections, weaknesses. Weaknesses, flaws. Also like mistakes. Flaws really is mistakes, yeah. Okay, but they're synonyms. The program had many flaws. Sometimes they are synonyms, but we might use them in different contexts, and in certain situations, we might favor one word over the other. You can talk about flaws or imperfections inside a person, like in our personality, in our character. With a computer program, I would talk about flaws, probably, or errors even, flaws. Shortcoming, yet one more. All of these are similar. Actually, I'm going to go like this. So you see these ones are quite similar. People can have imperfections. We all have imperfections. We all have character flaws. We all have shortcomings, meaning our weaknesses. Shortcoming, that's a great word, right? We're falling short of where we want to be. Like we're all trying to be the best that we can be. Nobody's perfect. And what holds us back a little bit from being that ideal person we want to be are our shortcomings. Shortcomings, weaknesses. Shortcomings. This one is definitely related to people and personalities. Yep. Okay. And I'll show you the use of these words in context. Okay. Foster is a verb. Perhaps you know in the U.S. we have foster care. So children who need a home, they might not have parents or they may not have a permanent home. So they go into a system of foster care where volunteer families take these kids into their homes and they take care of them. They do not adopt them, but they foster them. They care for them. They give them a home, shelter, and provide for their needs. It's a temporary home. It's not forever family, but sometimes foster families do become an adoptive family. But foster in general is to nurture and care for, just like those families ideally care for the foster children. They nurture them, they care for them. We can foster healthy relationships between countries, right? Foster is to like nurture or care for. Develop. Right? Stumble, some of you know, means to fall, right? Not necessarily stumble, almost fall. There's a difference. You can stumble and fall, or you can stumble just a bit, like your feet get tripped up and you almost fall, but not quite. You catch yourself. Stumbling can be literal, as you're walking along and you stumble over a stone and you don't walk smoothly for that second. You try not to fall. You stumble. But very often we use this word in an abstract sense, right? In our journey, in our careers, we try to take steps forward, and it's not always smooth steps that we're taking. Sometimes we stumble. We make a little mistake here and there, even a big mistake. You can stumble and fall, or you can simply stumble along the way. Okay. Yes, I see more comments. So I won't go into great detail with empathy and sympathy. They're very similar, and I'm just offering some links that you can check out. Dictionary.com offers a nice explanation of the two, and I also found a good explanation from simplypsychology.org. You might be curious about these two words. They come from the same root, right? Pathos, feeling. So something about feeling. Sim is togetherness, like symmetry, right? SIM or SIN, like sync together. So it is about feeling something with another person, but they're slightly different. I see Stunning Lad 1 says empathy would be used for when one person has experienced the same misfortune, like you empathize with your situation. Yeah, that's a basic difference. Sympathy is feeling compassion, sorrow, pity for the hardships that another person encounters. You know someone's having a bad time, a difficult period, and you're sorry. When somebody's loved one passes away, you offer your sympathy. Whether you've lost someone or not, you understand it's a difficult time, you offer your sympathy. Empathy is putting yourself in the shoes of another, which is why actors often talk about it, empathy. Empathy, again, is not just, oh, I understand how you feel, but you actually see the situation as they would see it. A good movie can do that. We feel like we're in that person's situation. Empathy. Psychology.org, simplypsychology.org says sympathy is feeling for someone, while empathy is feeling with someone. I'll say that again. That's a very nice, concise way to explain the difference. Sympathy is feeling for someone, while empathy is feeling with someone. Very similar. It's good to be sympathetic and empathetic. Okay. Let me show you why these words are important, because this is the final thing I'll be reading. Take the last 5 minutes and we will wind down. I was having fun with ChatGPT. Are you guys using that as well? Having some fun testing it out, checking out the possibilities. I gave instructions to ChatGPT to help me produce a text at the B1 level with too many parenthetical remarks. I changed, I tweak a little bit, but it's interesting to generate a text with ChatGPT. If you don't like the first result, you can generate a second. But my advice, for example, if any teachers are listening, that you usually have to play editor still and still tweak it a bit, make some changes so that it's suitable for your purposes. And for learners out there, you can use it in other ways. How would I use it? I wouldn't necessarily use it to take over all your writing in English, but it can help you. I have one private student who uses it for grammar checks. I know Grammarly is out there, but you could also put in a few sentences and ask ChatGPT to check for grammar mistakes. That's another acceptable use, I'd say. Okay? Oh, thank you, Stunning Lad 1. I appreciate that super sticker. All right, listen. Why am I showing you this text? Because if somebody submitted this to me, I would say it's written well with good vocabulary, but there are too many parentheses, too many parenthetical remarks. You can see them jumping out in such a short paragraph. There really shouldn't be this many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 1 or 2, but you don't need 5. So some of these have to go. We have to change some of them because the parentheses are overused. Let me read it straight through, and then we can start making some edits. This will be our last task. Human faults are an inevitable aspect of our nature, though we often strive to hide them. These imperfections make us human and shape our unique personalities, even if we wish we could be flawless. From minor shortcomings like forgetfulness to more significant ones such as impatience or jealousy, which can negatively impact our relationships, we all possess faults. Embracing our flaws and learning from them can lead to personal growth and empathy, although it might be challenging to do so at times. Acknowledging and addressing our imperfections can help us become better individuals and foster understanding and compassion for others, even if we occasionally stumble along the way. Stunning Lad 1 saying, take them all out. Yeah, a lot of them are going to go. Okay. What I see here is that though, although, even if, right? These structures make complex sentences. Just because you say a word like but or although doesn't mean it automatically has to go in parentheses. There's a main clause and there's a dependent clause. And we know that the dependent clause is at a lower level. It cannot exist without the main clause. So by nature, complex sentences have a main clause, an independent clause, and a dependent clause. And sometimes we use a comma to separate the two clauses, but we don't need parentheses just because it's a complex sentence, okay? So be careful with that. It's possible sometimes, like I could say, you can join me on Patreon for more practice if you want, like if you're B2 or higher. So you could put a dependent clause in parentheses if it sounds more like a comment, an aside. But just because it's a complex sentence does not mean you have to use parentheses. Okay? Yes, sometimes commas or dashes would work. Here, I'd say why? Just human faults are an inevitable aspect of our nature, right? It's something that we can't stop from happening. We all have them. It's part of the human experience. Inevitable aspect. I would say, let's change this and just make it part of the sentence. Human faults are an inevitable aspect of our nature, though we often strive to hide them, right? We make the effort to sort of hide our flaws, to hide our imperfections and our faults. But it's inevitable. Of course we have them. We'll always have some weaknesses. Part of the human experience is trying to overcome them, right? These imperfections make us human and shape our unique personalities, even if we wish we could be flawless. I think this is starting to sound redundant. We just said we don't like them. We don't like having them. We try to hide them. We hide them because we wish they weren't there. I personally feel this isn't necessary. What's more important is just saying that these flaws, these faults and imperfections are just part of us. They make us human and shape our unique personalities. I'd say take it out. Okay? From minor shortcomings like forgetfulness to more significant ones such as impatience or jealousy, which can negatively impact our relationships, we all possess faults. You could leave it, but again, I think it becomes very wordy. I think the main idea here is that there are minor faults and there are major faults. We already have examples, minor ones like forgetfulness, more significant ones such as impatience or jealousy, right? We have the minor ones, we have the major ones. We all have them. That's what this sentence is about. I'd say take it out. It's too wordy. Embracing our flaws, right? Accepting them wholly, knowing that they're a part of us, and learning from them can lead to personal growth and empathy, although it may be challenging to do so at times. Okay, if you really want to leave one in here, you might leave this one. You could. Or you could say, look at this. You could go at the beginning and say, although challenging at times, and then you could take this out. That's what I would do. Look at that. Although challenging at times, embracing our flaws and learning from them could lead to personal growth and empathy. That's what I prefer. Acknowledging, meaning recognizing, and addressing our imperfections can help us become better individuals and foster, remember, nurture, understanding and compassion for others, even if we occasionally stumble along the way. I like that one, and I say, why should it even be an aside? I think it's a nice addition to that thought. Let's foster understanding and compassion, even if we stumble as we try to do this. So again, this is just it has a complex sentence, even if. That's the dependent clause. Okay? Let me read it once more now, and you'll see how much more smoothly and readable this text is, how much more smoothly I can read it. Human faults are an inevitable aspect of our nature, though we often strive to hide them. These imperfections make us human and shape our unique personalities. From minor shortcomings like forgetfulness to more significant ones such as impatience or jealousy, we all possess faults. Although challenging at times, embracing our flaws and learning from them can lead to personal growth and empathy. Acknowledging and addressing our imperfections can help us become better individuals and foster understanding and compassion for others, even if we occasionally stumble along the way. Okay. Actually, another suggestion I have is I don't even think you need both of these. This would also help with wordiness. I think acknowledging and addressing are similar enough. I would take one out. Okay, so you see, when you have a text, revision is a very important part of the writing process. If you want to produce something of quality, you need to work with it a few times at least and tackle things like too much use of something or too little use of something, repetition, redundancy. These are all things that we can step by step eliminate from our writing. Okay, this is the final text. I encourage you to pause if you're watching the recording, read it once carefully to yourself, and come back to the key vocabulary and make sense of the words again. If you're like, I forgot about foster, that's new for me. Foster. Okay, foster means care for, nurture. How was it used? Foster. Foster what? Foster understanding and compassion. So you nurture understanding, you nurture compassion, you help it grow. And then you could try using that in a new sentence, right? By volunteering with children, or volunteering with children nurtures empathy, nurtures understanding, nurtures appreciation for their curiosity. What other qualities do we nurture or do we want to nurture? Okay. All right. So we talked about parentheses today. We talked about adjective clauses and whether they're identifying or non-identifying. And we read a poem together. And again, I invite you to check out my collection of 15 poems on the Shopify store. Again, you can find the link on my website. It's now on YouTube with the products. And yes, if you're on Instagram, click my smart profile. It will open up and it's the first link. So I'm very happy and excited to start sharing digital products with you. These are the kinds of things I would share with private students. If we read a poem together, a private student normally gets my recording so they can listen and practice. They have vocabulary notes. So I want to give this kind of opportunity to everyone. If you can't study with me one-on-one, you can at least have my tools and you can study independently with my model. I hope you enjoy poetry. Even if you're a native speaker, you may still enjoy, I hope you would still enjoy the experience of listening to poetry. There's the one recording with and without, one with and one without music. And so the one with music is just an enjoyable listening experience, I hope. So check them out and visit the store. And I'm going to end here, see if there are any additional questions coming up. Okay. Adopt. Yep, lots of good examples coming up with parentheses. Yes, you'll see lots of alternatives, commas, parentheses. Play around with punctuation. If you have any questions, check out my playlist. You'll see the titles if you want to review commas, if you want to review dashes, or if you want to review parentheses. And after you watch the lesson, if you have questions or you want to practice writing a sentence, you can put that in the comments. And I'm pretty good about checking all public comments every day. Okay, but if you really want extensive practice, you'll want to think about private lessons, or if you're B2 or higher, come join me on Patreon and you get lots of practice with all skills. We're winding down. We're 13 minutes past the full hour, so thank you for all who've stuck around with me. Thank you for watching the recording if you are doing that. Thank you to all my members. Thank you also to the kind-hearted patrons on Patreon who simply donate each month to support my work. I appreciate that very much, okay? Have a beautiful weekend. Have a peaceful weekend wherever you are. And I will see you next month again for the next live stream, okay? I don't see any new commas. Yes, if you're talking about my store, I will be adding more products step by step. That's how things are built. Right? They say Rome wasn't built in a day, neither was a Shopify store, if you're trying to do it well. So thank you all. Thank you for the super stickers today. Thank you for new members who joined me. All right, guys, bye-bye. Happy studies.